Hoove is not AR, and AR is not Hoove. Does everybody know that? Yes.
Loosely, now I do.
Jason says yes. All right, Steven was loosely. Okay. Yeah, Hoove is not AR, and AR is not Hoove. Um, collecting AR does not mean you collect Hoove, and collecting Hoove does not mean you're collecting AR. And here's the main difference. Hoove is going to be traded outside. So if you have some Hoove, you can put up an offer on offerpool.io and get some cash for it. There you go. Boom. You cannot do that with AR. Or at least I don't know why anybody would. I guess you could try to sell it to them, but I don't know why anybody would buy it.
Again, that's internal. AR is internal, right?
Right. The only thing you can do with AR is pay other Hoovers or bank it to get to a certain level, to get like join the board, or bank it or to become an EPE. So I don't know why anybody who isn't a Hoover would ever want AR. If you can sell it to them, sure. They might get mad when they find out nobody else wants it. But Hoove, on the other hand, that is going to be tradable on the outside. I guess it's more of just like a security. I shouldn't even say that out loud, but it's more like a security in that.
Well, I think you can say it's like a security without actually being one.
Yeah.
Does it just represent the value of our labor as an organization, like what people would pay for it?
Yeah. So Hoove, we have an index associated with Hoove, and that is the amount of AR in the system divided by Hoove. So it's like a loose value of how what the organization is doing. So like if I had a whole bunch of Hoove, in order to get Hoove, there's two ways to do it. You can be on the board and you pay your taxes and you get Hoove, right? So like this year, whenever I get the tax bill back, which we'll see whenever that happens. Jesus Christ, it's taking forever. But we filed an extension, so we're okay. I guess that doesn't mean anything to you guys. The corporation is okay that is filing the taxes because we filed an extension. But okay, so and let's say the taxes are $8,000. That was my guess when I did them. We'll see if the accountant can do anything better. And there's 10 of us that are going to be paying taxes. It's $800 a person. Well, each person that pays those taxes is going to get 800 Hoove, right? So you will have paid $800 for 800 Hoove, and then you're also going to get which Matt will talk about, a tax NFT receipt, which at the end of the year you'll present to get your dividend, and the dividend is going to be based on how much cash we have. It's going to be based on how much cash we have. So if we have a ton of cash, like people did a lot of great work, there's a lot of cash in the system, then the dividend will come out. Say there's $100,000 in there, the dividend will be 10,000 total. And say there's 10 board members, each person would get 1,000 Hoove. And so that means there's a ton of cash in the system. Now, because the only way to get Hoove, well, those are two ways: pay the taxes and then get Hoove for paying the taxes, and then getting your dividend. So there's two ways. The third way to get it is to buy it directly from the Hoove wallet, which when Matt mints the tokens, the wallet that we send them to is going to be the Hoove wallet, and the Hoove wallet only sells them at the index. So if there's 200,000 AR out there and 100,000 Hoove, then the index is 2, So the Hoove wallet is only ever going to sell Hoove out at $2 per Hoove. So for those of us who are buying it through taxes and buying it and getting it through dividends, we're getting a pretty good deal. Maybe at the end of the day, we're paying 75 cents, maybe a little less, for each Hoove token. Whereas people on the outside are paying at whatever the index is, which is going to be higher than that, which will be higher than 75 cents per. So there'd be no reason that you, the board members who are collecting Hoove, would ever sell it below what they paid for it. And there'd be no reason that if somebody bought it on the outside would ever sell it for less than what they were paying for. So from a market dynamic, it's difficult to see how the price could ever drop below any of those, because even if somebody did whale up and was just like, I'm going to attack this, buy up everybody's Hoove for $1.50 a piece and then just try to sell it all to crash the price, well, who cares? We already sold it, all of our Hoove. And the way it spills out is by production value anyways, not by just distributing billions of tokens for no reason. So the value of the Hoove is dependent upon the labor that we produce, because the amount of Hoove that gets produced is based on the labor that we produce. So anyways, that's Hoove. AR is completely different. AR is created when new cash comes into the system. But if is created when new cash comes into the system. But the only thing you can do with the AR is that we might not even tokenize it on a blockchain, or if we did, we do it in a very specific way that it can't be traded to anybody that doesn't have a Hoove NFT. I think that's the way we're going to do it, right, Matt? We'll assign all Hoovers an NFT, and then you won't be able to transact AR unless you have that NFT.
Yeah, I think that would be probably the best way to do it if we wanted to do it that way. Just like when you come in, you sign the agreements, you get that 5,000 AR to you, you also get that NFT. I
Yeah.
think would be the best way to do it.
And the NFT is the sort of the card that you would use to trade the AR. And you get AR when another Hoover pays it to you, so they had to have gotten it from somewhere. Or if you do a $5,000 website deal and that's paid into the treasury, you get 5K AR. Or if you're an EPE on a project with a founder like me and Lorraine, she's got a deal coming in right now that's going to be $3,000 for me to build a payments widget for this person. Well, we're founders, so we're splitting that. The cash comes in and it goes into the Widget King account, right? So that when we go to market Widget King and say hey, look how much money it has, right? Look how much money it's made, that'll be tracked on that, and then hopefully somebody will buy Widget King off of us for a whole bunch of money. But that creates 3,000 new AR, which is then split between Lorraine and I. So, which we are then going to use to grow Widget King, and we do that by spending it on other Hoovers to help us grow Widget King. So, yeah, that's probably a lot in the weeds. If you have any questions.
No, I think it was important to discuss that, because even I earlier this week or last week was having questions on what the difference was exactly. And as you said, they're pretty close on a 1-to-1, but there is still a little bit of a discrepancy between that and between Hoove and AR.
The important distinction is what they're used for.
Right,
So Hoove, if you want Hoove and you want to be trading in the market, you would join the board, because that's where you're going to collect Hoove tokens. We also sell Hoove tokens publicly. So that Hoove wallet, right? Anybody will be. We're going to put those out on dexes and say, hey, buy some Hoove, right? And that'll put cash into the treasury, and they'll get Hoove, and that's great for the board too, because that increases the float, right? Which increases the amount of dividend that we're going to get, which means more Hoove that we get, and there we go. So, and it all kind of goes around in a nice circle. So the value of it is constantly increasing by the amount of value that's created from the labor that we do, which is in part represented by the cash that's created by that. But you might want to speculate on Hoove. Like if somebody sees that, like, look, there's 20 EPEs who are all at 10K AR and there's a big exit coming. Well, all those EPEs have to get up to 45K AR before they can cash anything out. That means there's another 100,000 AR that will be coming in and added to the index, which means the price of Hoove is going to go up in the future. But I can see it's underpriced right now for some reason. So I'm going to buy a bunch, which will in turn drive up the price. So people will still be able to speculate based on what's coming down the pipeline, where everybody's AR is, and all that good stuff. So it's not just we brought in this cash, it's therefore worth this much. There is speculation involved too, but there's no. I mean, I guess somebody could like say, "Oh, there's nothing coming down the pipe. I'm going to sell it, try to get what I can right now." But even still, you know, there would be people available to buy it up, I guess. But the sellers would eventually run out because most of the people are getting their Hoove through, 1-to-1, or they're working in the system as is. Markets are weird. Markets do funky things. Can't always predict them. But generally, this is not just sort of spiked out there like a Dogecoin, which is, hey, this is a fun joke. Everybody buy it because it's fun. Speculate the hell. No, there's value tapped behind it, but it's also not as stable as like a DAI or something like that, which is literally based on how much cash is sitting in the account. And if they sell out of if a lot of people turn their DAI in, they got to refill the cash reserves, and they do that through a whole bunch of methods. So we don't have to deal with any of that finance stuff necessarily. I'm sure all of this is wildly increasing confidence, but it doesn't fucking matter because it's all based on the amount of value that's created in the system anyway. So I don't care what the confidence is in it, since the value is pretty easily accessible based on the work being done. All right, is that good enough?
Yeah, it's good enough for me.
These
If
are the
anyone has any
discussions I have
questions.
in my head all day, by the way. So you're getting to see what it's like to be alone with me, and I don't fault anybody for not wanting to have to do that.
No, both fortunately and unfortunately, I'm aware of that, and you and I have tons of discussions, and I think I I know all this because I've been in your head while you've been having these discussions.
With myself. Yeah. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, there we go. So as this will spill out. All right, whatever, I'm done.
First, I want to say, forgive my appearance of being like really ignorant to how this works. I actually feel like I understand it decently well, but I'm just very timid with saying like, oh, I know something that's unfamiliar until I really get it. Last thing is like, when I paid, money like US dollars into the system, you're saying that increased the float and the AR, right? That's what happened with that.
No. So what happens is, so if you were to pay $1,250 into the system, you would get 1,250 Hoove. Okay, that does not create AR. That's just you. That would just be you buying Hoove. But that cash does go into an account, which is in the float, which adds to the float. Now, but so now what you can do with that Hoove is, once we get it going, and we are very close to getting it going, and there are swaps being created in the Chia ecosystem for you to be able to market that Hoove out if you wanted to get rid of it, right? If you wanted to convert it back into cash, you'd put it out in an offer pool. Now, how much liquidity there is out there, is there's not tons of it. How much demand there is for Hoove tokens, nobody really knows what we're doing. I mean, we're making as much noise as we can, but a lot of this is going to depend on how much noise we can all make about it. So those of us who are going to be holding Hoove tokens through taxes or through purchasing them ourselves, I have purchased 27,000 tokens of Hoove, right? So I'm a whale, all right. But that's the money that I've put into this whole thing the last 2-3 years.
Okay.
Okay. But the other thing so I'll leave it at that. It is liquid. So the Hoove that you purchase is liquid, and the work that I'm going to be focused on a lot of, and I'm hoping that everybody will help me, is trying to make it as liquid as possible into the future.
I think I have an offer just because I'm not being snarky. Like, I think this would actually make our organization really more accessible to new people and just help them understand and make it seem more, legit. I would pay someone $100 just to make a simple infographic of this information that is like shareable, in a way that new people can come in and be like, oh, this makes sense.
I agree.
Like,
And
yeah.
there's two ways that that's going to get done. One, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, actually, by the way, in terms of us getting the word out, is stuff like that. And you wouldn't actually pay somebody cash to do it. What we would do is find a Hoover on the board, or I'm sorry, a Shangri-La member who doesn't have a civic duty yet, and that would be their civic duty, right? It would be to make that infographic.
Just a one time.
Yeah, and if you want to throw them $100 as like a thank you, get after it, right? Or however you want to pat them on the back. Throw them some AR, throw them some Hoove, throw them some cash, whatever it is. I think a lot in the founders group, right? Those of us getting founders token, we all have an interest in making sure that this gets there as much as possible, and we don't want to be draconian in how we assign. You need to do this. I think it's much better if we're all like, hey, somebody should do this, and the rest of us look at them and go, that's a great idea. Do it. Right? And if you're like, well, I don't want to do it, like, okay, well, let's find somebody who does. And so then we'll go to one of the other people who maybe has the skills or has the desire to want to do something like that and say, hey, you're not doing anything right now. Why don't you, everybody else is picking up a shovel. Why don't you go do it? So yeah, I mean, and the person to make that, by the way, would be Jason and Brian. And actually, probably Steven, you could help them on it too. But Jason and Brian do that stuff professionally. So where's Jason? There you go, Jay.
I'm right here, bro.
Yeah, that's a Jason and Brian thing. We've been talking about doing something like that for a while. There was a time where it was, let's just get some bikini model off of Cameo or something and tell her what to say. There has been infographics thrown around. Somebody's just got to sit down and get her done. I think once people start getting tokens in their hands and getting the wallet set up and start seeing how this stuff moves around, and everybody starts to really understand how it all is, because there's me just droning on about it, which has been the case for a couple of years. Now they're starting to get some meat and some teeth on it, and people are actually starting to do transactions around all of this stuff. So I think it's starting to become more real, and more people will have more insight into how it works, and then we'll be able to explain it better than I ever could. So I'm optimistic about that happening sooner rather than later.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Much appreciated. I mean, you'll see a common theme of my, intentions in this organization with Hoove Recruiter and that suggestion just in general. I would like to make it more accessible to people to join and understand and legitimize, because I think the most important thing we can do is grow our talent pool.
I agree. That's a huge part of it. And I will just say that the strategy up till now has been to create as much friction as possible. The reason for that is there have been so many Web3 orgs, Web3 groups, actually just orgs and groups in general, who are ridiculously good at the front end recruiting side of things. They can get a ton of people in the door, but then it turns out there's no meat on the bones. And so what I've tried to do in the beginning in the last couple of years is create a lot of friction there so that only people who, can sort of handle being a part of the early phases of things get through, or the people with some vision or some optimism or who are willing to take a chance. Those are the ones that we want at the beginning. And I think we're really close now to the point where we have something that can be made clear, and the tokenomics are starting to get, like I said, some meat on the bone so that people can see them in action rather than me just explaining it theoretically. And now that we're there really is something to explain, or there's something that is explainable and demonstratable in an easy way. And being able to and then disseminating that information will just be a natural result of that, because somebody's going to do it. Like, somebody will just get fed up one night and snort a bunch of Adderall and make an infographic. I know that's going to happen, right? I don't know who's going to do it, but I got my money on a couple people.